has been in the United States since the 1990s and has no criminal record. Here's the thing that got me about this story. It caused me to ask the question about this particular moment, the type of deportation machine that has been unleashed on the American people. Narciso, this landscaper, raised 3 American sons, all of whom became Marines, 2 of whom are currently, Mr. Speaker, on active duty Marines. His sons, juggling their military assignments, have been trying to deal with the costs and the paperwork required to adjust their father's immigration status through parole in place, a program which allows undocumented members of military families to apply for a green card. But these men in uniform, juggling their military assignments, had not gotten there yet. So after 3 decades, living, working, and raising a family of patriots in the United States, Narciso was violently arrested while he was mowing the grass at an IHOP restaurant. We don't have to speculate as to whether this was true or not. In a video captured of the incident, you see he was sprayed with pepper gas. He was detained on the ground. He was not resisting. And he was hit repeatedly in the head by masked federal agents while he was on the ground. Let me park right there parenthetically for a moment. Seems to me that every other law enforcement professional in the United States of America has to disclose their identity in a way that is identifiable. These masks need to come down. They need to come down. They need to come down. These agents should just be held to the same set of standards as every other law enforcement officer in the United States of America. And if you don't understand the righteousness of that position, just study the case of Narciso. His oldest son, a Marine veteran, said in an interview, what we weren't prepared for and didn't prep him for was these guys attacking him. We never expected anything like that. We expected these guys to act professionally. And up to the standards of the United States government. Are masked, armed federal agents who beat people on the ground really the standards the United States government should be standing by? Are these the types of actions, Mr. Speaker, that House Republicans endorse and support? This is not the way that anyone in the United States of America should be treated, particularly the father of 3 patriotic Marines. No one should be treated this way, but certainly not the father of 3 patriotic Marines in the United States of America. It's outrageous. It's out of control. And it's completely and totally unacceptable. Unacceptable. Unacceptable here in the United States of America. We are better than this. Better than this. Mr. Speaker, I've talked about the aspirational vision that we have for a country where everybody can afford to live the good life and work hard, play by the rules, experience the American dream, live the good life, good paying job, good housing, good health care, good education for their children, and a good retirement. That's not too much to ask in the United States of America, the wealthiest country in the history of the world, a great country, an exceptional country, as Abraham Lincoln once observed in a speech in the chamber of the House of Representatives. America, the last best hope of Earth. Spent a little time talking about the type of things, the type of America that we should be working hard in a bipartisan way to bring about, and spent some time critiquing this one big, ugly bill. And it's not like Republicans, Mr. Speaker, weren't given every opportunity to try to address the concerns that we have raised. I'm thankful for my colleagues in all of the committees of jurisdiction who worked hard, pulling all-nighters, offering amendments to try to improve this one big, ugly bill. We've actually introduced throughout this process, Mr. Speaker, hundreds of amendments. Just yesterday before the Rules Committee, hundreds of amendments. And before that, in late May, when the initial bill was being debated in a marathon session before the Rules Committee, more than 125 or so Democrats offering more than 500 different amendments to improve this bill, to stand up for the American people. Doing so over and over and over again throughout this process. And so, Mr. Speaker, I think it's important for the American people to understand what exactly House Republicans have rejected. What changes have House Republicans rejected to this one big, ugly bill? We repeatedly tried to offer an amendment, both in rules and on the House floor on behalf of the American people, to strike every single provision that would cause the largest cuts to health care and food assistance in history, which will result in 17 million people or more losing health coverage and jeopardizing nutritional benefits for about 42 million Americans who might otherwise go hungry. Republicans voted down that amendment. I believe it was Representative Amelia Sykes had an amendment to strike the Medicaid cuts in the bill to prevent millions of people from losing their health insurance and to stop hospitals and nursing homes from shutting their doors. Republicans voted down that amendment. Representative Judy Chu had an amendment striking cuts to the Affordable Care Act. Cuts that are in this one big ugly bill that will cause millions of everyday Americans to lose their health insurance or experience having their costs go up. Mr. Speaker, you know that Republicans voted down that amendment. Representative Lauren Underwood from the great state of Illinois had an amendment, and I wish I could go through all of the amendments that have been introduced, but I'm going to highlight as many as I can. Representative Lauren Underwood had an amendment to ensure that people who get their insurance through the ACA, Obamacare, will not see their premiums increase. As I mentioned earlier, that as a result of this one big ugly bill, Mr. Speaker, premiums, copays, and deductibles are going to go up for millions of Americans. Many will lose coverage. And so this amendment was introduced to ensure that people who get their insurance through the ACA will not see their premiums increase this year, which is expected to cause 5 million people to lose coverage. Mr. Speaker, Republicans voted down that amendment. Representative Kelly Morrison had an amendment that strikes the defunding of Planned Parenthood, which provides access to life-saving cancer screenings and reproductive health care. Now, last year, Republicans, Mr. Speaker, promised that reproductive health care, reproductive freedom was a state issue. President Trump promised that reproductive health care, reproductive freedom was a state issue. And yet in this bill, there's a backdoor attack on reproductive freedom by targeting health care, preventative health care, that Planned Parenthood provides to millions of people all across this country. Representative Kelly Morrison had an amendment that strikes the defunding of Planned Parenthood, which provides access to life-saving cancer screenings along with reproductive health care. Republicans voted that down. Let me pause there parenthetically just to make one observation on this issue of reproductive freedom. What we're seeing right now in the House of Representatives, Mr. Speaker, Republicans unleashing a march toward a nationwide abortion ban. That's what's going on right now. What does this provision have to do with making life more affordable for everyday Americans? Nothing. This is all part of a right-wing ideological extreme effort to undermine reproductive freedom in the United States of America. Let me make something clear, Mr. Speaker. House Democrats believe in a woman's freedom to make her own reproductive health care decisions, a decision that should be between a woman, her family, her faith, and her doctors. That's it, period, full stop. And we will continue to fight for reproductive freedom in the United States of America. And we will not rest, Mr. Speaker, until the Women's Health Protection Act becomes the law of the land here in the United States of America. Big difference between us and them. Big difference. Mr. Speaker, Representative Johanna Hayes introduced an amendment to strike all provisions that would cut food assistance for children, seniors, and veterans. Republicans voted that down. How cruel. How cruel. Representative Shontel Brown had an amendment to strike burdensome red tape requirements that threaten nutritional assistance for millions of Americans and their families. Republicans voted that down. I mentioned earlier, Mr. Speaker, this notion that Republicans are trying to spin to the American people that the attack on nutritional assistance, imposing these paperwork requirements, or as Frank Pallone would say, red tape requirements, that's all about waste, fraud, and abuse. I think common sense suggests to us it has nothing to do with waste, fraud, and abuse. Mr. Speaker, I made clear earlier that as House Democrats, we believe that as custodians of taxpayer dollars, we need to make sure that we are spending that money efficiently, effectively, and equitably. And that we are committed to eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse wherever it may be found. I mean, one of the things that's interesting about this bill, this appears to be part of the deal that was negotiated by the senator from Alaska, is that the states apparently that have the highest error rates with respect to supplemental nutritional assistance are shielded from the initial impact of the nutritional assistance cuts. Let's think about that for a moment. How can it be that Republicans, Mr. Speaker, are claiming that this bill has anything to do with waste, fraud, and abuse, and yet the states with the highest error rate, as Republicans during the Rules Committee acknowledged under questioning from Jim McGovern and Mary Gay Scanlon and Joe Neguse and Teresa Leger Fernandez, acknowledged that the states with the highest error rates actually shielded from the initial impact of the cuts to supplemental nutritional assistance. Angie Craig pointed this out. It exposes, in my view, the lie being told, Mr. Speaker, by some in this town that this effort, this one big, ugly bill, is somehow about combating waste, fraud, and abuse. One of the reasons why we know common sense dictates that this one big ugly bill has nothing to do with meaningfully going after waste, fraud, and abuse is that, on average, SNAP beneficiaries receive $6 per day to try to help them not go hungry, to try to make sure that veterans and children and seniors don't go hungry. Mr. Speaker, I think it's important for the American people to process. That's what SNAP on average provides, $6 per day. At the same time, Elon Musk, his federal contracts, as we understand it, amount to $8 million per day. Mr. Speaker, if Republicans were really serious about targeting waste, fraud, and abuse in the United States of America, start there. $8 million per day. Start right there. Don't take it, don't rip it from the mouths of children, seniors, or veterans. If Republicans were really serious about targeting waste, fraud, and abuse, start right there with Elon Musk. And we'll join you. We'll welcome you into the warm embrace of the House Democratic Caucus to target waste, fraud, and abuse. Start right there. You can start right there, Mr. Speaker. Start right there. Ranking members Jim McGovern and Bobby Scott had an amendment, Mr. Speaker, to prohibit the bill from going into effect unless cuts to Medicaid and SNAP would not result in fewer families being eligible for free school meals. Mr. Speaker, as you know, Republicans voted down that amendment. We can't find a way to stand up for school meals, for school breakfast, for school lunch. That's just cruel. It is callous. It's a corrupt perversion of this process, targeting, as this one big ugly bill does, school children, hungry school children in the United States of America. Speaker, Representative Mike Thompson had an amendment that would have ensured Americans would not see their energy costs go up, and to protect the millions of good-paying jobs that this bill will eliminate, because this one big ugly bill puts a target on the backs of the clean energy economy, on clean energy jobs, which result in cheaper energy and lower costs for the American people. We were told by President Donald Trump when he was on the campaign trail, costs would go down on day one. He was going to focus, we were told, on lowering the high cost of living in the United States of America. That's not what this bill does. And we know it, because 21 House Republicans made that clear. in a letter that I cited earlier that's now part of this public record. Representative Mike Thompson, supported by others, had an amendment. All of these amendments co-sponsored by members all across the gorgeous mosaic of the House Democratic Caucus. We're proud of the fact that we look like we represent, in the most intimate way possible, consistent with John Adams' original vision of the House of Representatives, that the House should be a portrait of the American people. That's what we represent. We're proud of that fact. The gorgeous mosaic of the American people. That's what we're all about, in the most intimate way possible. That's why we love the House. And what the House is supposed to represent, the best of the House, not what we're seeing on the floor right now. Mr. Speaker, Republicans voted down the amendment introduced by Representative Mike Thompson that was designed to ensure that Americans would not see their energy costs go up. It was also designed to protect the good-paying American jobs that were part of both the Bipartisan Infrastructure and Jobs Act, the Infrastructure and Jobs Act, as well as the Inflation Reduction Act. And so this amendment was designed to lift up the principle of actually trying to create good-paying union jobs that actually allow people to provide a comfortable living in the United States of America. Amongst this all-out assault that we are witnessing in the United States is an all-out assault on organized labor. An assault on collective bargaining, an assault on the freedom to negotiate. What's the difference, Mr. Speaker, between us and our colleagues on the other side of the aisle? I think one of the things that is a clear difference, Mr. Speaker, is that we believe, we recognize that in connection with this journey, work hard, play by the rules, imagine and dare to dream the ability to live the good life, to experience the American dream. An American dream that when you work hard and play by the rules, you should be able to provide a comfortable living for yourself and for your family. Educate your children. Purchase a home. Have access to high-quality health care. Go on vacation every now and then. And then one day retire with grace and dignity. That's the American dream. That's the ability to afford and access the good life. And we believe as House Democrats that no single force in the United States of America has done more to bring the American dream to life than organized labor, and we will continue to stand up for organized labor today, tomorrow, and always. Not undermine good-paying union jobs. That's what this bill this one big ugly bill does in the United States of America. We're going to stand up. Stand up. Stand up for organized labor. This is personal to me. My parents, Marlon Jeffries, Lanita Jeffries, they raised us, my younger brother Hassan and I, they raised us in a working class union household. I'm thankful for that. We were raised in central Brooklyn. Now, my mom grew up in Connecticut. And I mentioned that must be Johanna Hayes. I don't see Rosa DeLauro on my sight line, but we're so thankful for all of the members of the Connecticut delegate. I'm an unofficial sixth member of the Connecticut delegation. My mom raised in Bristol, Connecticut. She went to Bristol High School. Thankful for my mom. And my dad, I mentioned earlier, he grew up in Newark. That must be LaMonica McIver. I grew up in Brick City. I mentioned earlier he had a nickname Pudding. I failed to ask him, but I'm going to see if my mom can unlock the key to that nickname for me. My mom grew up in Bristol, Connecticut, and my father grew up in Newark. And I mentioned earlier that he then went off to serve this country in uniform as an Air Force member, served in Germany during the Cold War. I think about that a lot. I didn't get to talk too much about it. I wish I would have had the opportunity to talk a little bit more with my dad about that. It's an extraordinary thing in the United States of America that someone could grow up in inner city Newark and then have the ability, in part thanks to President Harry Truman, to serve with people of all races to defend this great country. I wish I would have had the opportunity to talk to my dad a little bit more about his experience in Germany, because the one thing that I've been able to take away from that experience was that he came back having fallen in love with Heinekens and Becks. But he came back after serving this country, Mr. Speaker, in uniform, as so many men and women do right now in uniform. And let me make clear, we're so thankful, we're so appreciative of the courage of the men and women in uniform who serve in the United States military, and we will always stand behind you. We thank you for your service, your patriotism, your courage, your heroism, and your sacrifice, lifting up the freedom that is America. You are not suckers, you are heroes. You're not suckers, you're heroes. We're thankful for your service. The men and women. No better hype person than Frederica Wilson. So my dad, as I mentioned, grew up in Newark. My mom in Bristol, Connecticut. So they meet at Central State University. Proud to note, a historically black college and university that has given so much. Historically black colleges and universities to the United States of America, and we will always stand behind you. Always stand behind you. We will always stand behind you. I wouldn't be here right now without a historically black college and university. I'll never run away from that. I will never run away from that. And we're proud of the fact, we can check the record, proud of the fact that over the last few years prior to this administration, historic investment in Hispanic serving institutions, in historically black colleges and universities, in higher education. That's part of who I am right now. I don't know if I'll have time to tell the story of my grandmother. Maybe I will. I got so many stories, I feel like I'm in a hip-hop studio right now. But they all relate to what makes every single one of us, every single Democrat, have a story to tell. A story to tell. Brooklyn will get that. Every single one of us have a story to tell. That leads us to this moment. It's the reason why we're fighting hard against this incredible and unprecedented assault on the American way of life and an assault on organized labor. So my parents, they meet at Central State University, and Dad would tell us, my younger brother and I, that it was love at first sight. But apparently my mom said, not so fast. But it worked out. I'm thankful for that. They met at Central State University. And so, of course, I mentioned that mom from Connecticut, father from New Jersey. Why was it that we grew up in New York City? Apparently, they compromised and moved to Brooklyn. And so I'm raised in Brooklyn, New York. Working class neighborhood. In the middle of the crack cocaine epidemic. Dangerous times in New York City. In a union household, proud that I grew up in the Cornerstone Baptist Church, still a member of the Cornerstone Baptist Church. Grew up in this union household. And Mr. Speaker, I land on that moment, and every single one of us as House Democrats have a similar story to tell about why in our heart, in our soul, in our essence, in our experience, we're so horrified by the attacks on organized labor. Because we understand the importance of what organized labor has meant to the American journey. My mom and dad were both public servants throughout their entire lives. My mom worked for 45 years, DC 37, for the city of New York. My dad, he worked for 30 years. He was a member of the Public Employees Foundation. He was a substance abuse social worker dealing with addiction. During the heroin explosion of the 1970s, the crack cocaine epidemic of the 1980s. But they got married in 1967. And they were newlyweds. And many people familiar with the history of the labor movement, particularly in New York City, know that in 1967, the Social Service Employees Union, which they both belonged to at the time, famously went on strike for better pay, better health care, better working conditions, and most importantly, better service to the clients that they served. And I've thought about that fact. They were newlyweds. A few months in, and they had to make a decision when the Social Service Employees Union went out on strike, whether they would cross the picket line, because it was unclear, perhaps, how they would pay for food and rent and clothing as newlyweds in a new city. Or, Mr. Speaker, were they going to stand in solidarity with their union brothers and sisters? I'm so thankful, Mr. Speaker, when I learned that my parents made that decision to stand on that picket line for as long as it took in solidarity with their union brothers and sisters. That's part of our DNA. That's part of why we fight so hard. We can all trace a similar story. An inheritance from our parents and our grandparents. All of us have that kind of story to tell. Why am I so thankful that my parents made what I believe was a tough personal decision, but of course the right decision? It's because what that union membership actually meant to my journey and my younger brother's journey. 1973, my younger brother was born with a serious heart condition. He's okay right now. He's doing well. Right now, he continues to say on social media that he's our mother's favorite son. Let me say from the House floor, no, you are not. I think she favors both of us. A younger brother, 1973, he's born with a serious heart condition. He's okay right now. He's born with a serious heart condition. I'm thankful that it was that union negotiated health care that got our family through that difficult moment. That's why we do what we do. Our own personal experience. And then in the early 80s, my parents, modest living. Neither of them, even at the tail end of decades-long careers, ever made more than $50,000. Modest living. But in the early 80s in Crown Heights, rough neighborhood, central Brooklyn, they bought their first and only home. They were able to buy that home, the home that my younger brother Hassan and I were raised in, because of that union negotiated salary, and pay off the mortgage down to zero because of that union negotiated salary. This is personal to us, our own journey. And lastly, as it relates to this part of my journey, why we all fight for what we fight for, why we stood behind Mike Thompson's amendment to protect good-paying union jobs. I went to college. I went to Binghamton University. When I first got here, I was surprised to learn, actually, that I was the first graduate of Binghamton University ever elected to the United States Congress. I was shocked to learn that, but not the last. Because Vindman and Mannion have now joined us. And so we tripled the size of the Binghamton University delegation. It's part of the reason why we stand up for higher education and public education. That's our own experience. So I graduate from Binghamton University. My younger brother graduated from Morehouse University. I think that was Hank Johnson. Sanford Bishop. Graduated from Morehouse. I graduated from Binghamton University. And somehow, we managed to graduate from college without owing anything. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out how. Because as I mentioned, my mom, my dad, they just earned a modest living all throughout their careers. So one day I had a conversation with my mom and I was trying to figure it out. How did you pull that off? She said, well, I wanted to make sure my two sons could have a clean start to life. So I borrowed against my union negotiated pension to make sure my two sons could get free and clear of loans and get a higher education as part of our effort to experience the American dream. And so we all say to our brothers and sisters in organized labor, you don't ever have to worry about whether House Democrats are going to stand up for you, because you've always been there for us. You've always been there for us. You've always been there for us. That's our personal story. And every single one of us, we do this work because we've lived a life of opportunity that this great country has provided to us. And we're deeply troubled, saddened, disgusted that this great institution, this House of Representatives, Mr. Speaker, Republicans are trying to jam this one big ugly bill down the throats of the American people. A bill that hurts everyday Americans in order to reward billionaires with massive tax breaks. Shame on this institution if that bill ever passes. And so we say to the American people, we've been working hard to try to get this bill into a better situation, introducing amendment after amendment after amendment. Representative Judy Chu, the Chair Emeritus of KPAC, one of our extraordinary leaders, my good friend Grace Meng, she now chairs KPAC, but Representative Judy Chu, she had an amendment that no one earning more than $10 million per year receives a tax cut to prevent this reverse Robin Hood and the ballooning of the debt by $4 trillion. Mr. Speaker, you know, Republicans voted down that amendment. We support, as Democrats, providing tax relief to everyday Americans. We're willing to work in a bipartisan way to deal with that issue under the leadership of Richie Neal. But Republicans decided, Mr. Speaker, as you know, to go down this partisan road, play partisan games, try to jam this extreme budget down the throats of the American people. And so amendment after amendment after amendment introduced by House Democrats in good faith, exercising common sense to try to improve this bill. Representative Jimmy Gomez, the chair of the Dad's Caucus here in the United States House of Representatives, he had an amendment to ensure that people who make $1 billion a year don't get a tax break paid for by cutting Americans' health care and food assistance. Mr. Speaker, you know, Republicans voted that down. My good friend and classmate, Representative Susan DelBene, she had an amendment that would have made the child tax credit fully refundable. Susan DelBene, a great champion of the child tax credit. Let me also shout out a person that I believe is the mother of the enhanced and expanded child tax credit as well. The top Democrat on the Appropriations Committee, Rosa DeLauro. We're thankful for your leadership, Rosa. fighting hard on behalf of the American people. Susan DelBene, a great champion of the child tax credit. She had an amendment, Mr. Speaker, to make the child tax credit fully refundable, covering the 17 million children who are being left behind by the big, ugly bill, and increase the child tax credit for families. Because what Republicans are doing, Mr. Speaker, as you know, in this particular bill, not enhancing and expanding the child tax credit, you are undermining the child tax credit. And Representative Susan DelBene, my classmate, along with Catherine Clark and others, the class of 2012. We used to be the new kids on the block, now we're just the OGs. Susan DelBene, she introduces this amendment, and Mr. Speaker, as you know, Republicans voted it down. Representative Laura Gillen had an amendment that dealt with this issue a little bit earlier. The new and permanent cap on state and local tax deduction. Representative Laura Gillen had an amendment to strike the new and permanent cap on SALT, which is something that members of the House Republican Conference, Mr. Speaker, as you know, claimed was a line in the sand for them, specifically from New York, and said that they support, but Republicans voted down that amendment from Representative Laura Gillen. Representative Mary Gay Scanlon from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, one of the great members of the class of 2018, a great class. She had an amendment that would protect infants, babies, American citizens born in this country from the unconstitutional and un-American Trump executive order to end birthright citizenship. Republicans voted that down. Let me make something clear. No matter what it takes, we're going to make sure as House Democrats we stand up for the principle that every single child born in the United States of America pursuant to the 14th Amendment is an American citizen. We will never let anyone take that away. Not now, not ever. Not now, not ever. Not now, not ever. I think Mary Gay Scanlon, I'm appreciative of my big brother, Congressman Greg Meeks, my big brother in the United States Congress. We're a family as House Democrats committed to working hard, standing up on behalf of the American people. It's an honor of a lifetime to be part of this family. To stand on the shoulders of Nancy Pelosi and Steny Hoyer and Jim Clyburn. It's an honor to be part of this family. Fight hard on behalf of the American people, Representative Mary Gay Scanlon, I've got to repeat this, had an amendment, Mr. Speaker, to protect infants, children, babies against the unconstitutional and un-American Trump executive order to end birthright citizenship. Republicans voted that down. Representative Pramila Jayapal had an amendment to prevent ICE from deporting U.S. citizens. United States citizens, Mr. Speaker, that are being deported by the Trump administration. I documented some of that earlier today. We're happy to provide more examples. In fact, I'm happy to debate my colleague, Speaker Mike Johnson, on any of these issues anytime, right here on the floor of the House of Representatives. I sent you that invitation. I sent you that invitation. I sent you that invitation months ago. I'm still waiting to get a response. We're not running from the American people. We're ready to debate any of these issues anytime, any place, particularly right here on the floor of the House of Representatives. Representative Pramila Jayapal, she had an amendment, Mr. Speaker, to prevent ICE from deporting U.S. citizens. Republicans voted that down. Ranking Member Jim McGovern, and this issue is personal to him. I mentioned earlier, we do this work because we're informed by our own personal experiences. It's not about glory, it's not about profit. It's about improving the lives of the American people that we're privileged to represent. Jim McGovern, his wife Lisa, dealing with immense pain, immense personal tragedy, but fighting so hard on behalf of the American people. He had an amendment to restore the critical NIH research funding withheld by Donald Trump and Elon Musk to cure diseases like Alzheimer's and cancer, including pediatric cancer, childhood cancer. Mr. Speaker, you know Republicans voted that down. Hundreds of amendments introduced by Democrats to try to deal with the cruelty and the callousness of Donald Trump's one big ugly bill. Many amendments were offered by Democrats, and Republicans chose not to make these amendments in order. In other words, just ignored them, dismissed their importance. Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Gottheimer offered an amendment that adds a new requirement that the Secretary of HHS certify in writing that the reduction and rescissions made by this act will not affect cancer survivors currently on Medicaid or Medicare. Mr. Speaker, as you know, Republicans dismissed that amendment. Representative Houlihan and Representative Ramirez offered an amendment, Mr. Speaker, that exempts individuals with disabilities from having to prove eligibility for Medicaid every 6 months. That's a burdensome red tape requirement designed to throw people off of Medicaid who are eligible. That amendment was dismissed, Mr. Speaker, as you know, by House Republicans. Representative Sarah McBride the distinguished gentle lady from the great state of Delaware. The distinguished gentle lady from the great state of Delaware. She offered an amendment that requires the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, to certify provisions in this bill to make sure that those provisions will not reduce access to care or increase the cost of care for seniors who are duly eligible for Medicare and Medicaid. Mr. Speaker, as you know, Republicans dismissed that amendment. Representative Rob Menendez offered an amendment that the health provisions will not take effect if it would lead to an increase in mortality rates due to reduced access to hospital services. Mr. Speaker, as you know, House Republicans dismissed that amendment. Representative Val Hoyle introduced an amendment that strikes changes to provider taxes and preserves states' ability to use or increase provider taxes to fund Medicaid and protect hospital funding. Mr. Speaker, you know that despite Representative Hoyle offering this amendment, Republicans dismissed it. Rural hospitals will close as a result of Donald Trump's one big, ugly bill. They will close. Susan Collins acknowledged that fact. But House Republicans are here jamming a bill down the throats of the American people that will close hospitals in rural America, in urban America, in small-town America, in the heartland of America, and apparently, Mr. Speaker, couldn't care less. Let me be clear. We're going to stand up for those communities that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have abandoned. We're going to stand up for rural America, urban America, small-town America, the heartland of America, Appalachia. We're going to stand up for all of America, whether we represent you or not. Representative Nanette Barragan, one of our co-chairs of Steering and Policy, along with Robin Kelly and DWS, she offered an amendment increasing the Hospital Stabilization Fund that they had to include in this one big ugly bill. This amendment was designed to protect hospitals from closing and expand eligibility for safety net hospitals that we know exist all across America. In every corner in this country. Safety net hospitals that serve a large number of low-income patients, including those with Medicaid. And yet, Mr. Speaker, as you know, House Republicans dismissed this amendment. Amendment after amendment after amendment that Democrats have introduced to try to relieve the pain that is being visited upon the American people by this one big ugly bill, voted down by Republicans or dismissed out of hand. Representative Costa introduced an amendment to protect those on the low-income heating and energy assistance program who are also targeted by this one big ugly bill. It's part of an effort to ensure that all households on SNAP can continue to qualify. Mr. Speaker, as you know, Republicans dismissed that amendment out of hand, ignored it, did not see fit to take it up. Representative Jill Takuda from the great state of Hawaii, she introduced an amendment trying to prevent the nutrition title of this bill from taking effect. Against USDA can determine that the provisions of this one big ugly bill would not result in material economic harm to farmers, ranchers, and producers. Mr. Speaker, as you know, Republicans dismissed that amendment out of hand. Representative Lloyd Doggett had an amendment to extend tax cuts for the 98% of the American people who make $400,000 or less per year. Had that amendment been taken up and passed, it would have cut the cost of this one big, ugly bill by approximately 50%. And we would have been standing up for those everyday Americans who are now going to be hurt by other provisions in this GOP tax scam, this disgusting abomination. Mr. Speaker, as you know, that amendment dismissed out of hand by the House Republican majority. Representative Seth Magaziner from the great state of Rhode Island. He's only in his second term. Somehow he's the dean of the delegation. Along with my good friend Gabe Amo, Seth Magaziner, he had an amendment to provide a tax cut for the middle class, paid for by increasing taxes on the wealthiest here in this country. Taxes and a tax rate that had previously been at 39%, lowered by the original GOP tax scam in 2017. He had this amendment to provide a tax cut for middle-class Americans. Instead, Republicans are spending $1 trillion on massive tax breaks for the wealthiest amongst us. And that amendment was dismissed out of hand. Representative Stephen Horsford, who also came in the class of 2012, he had an amendment to make no tax on tips, which we support, But we support no tax on tips becoming a permanent part of the law, and that's not what this one big, ugly bill does. Tax breaks for billionaires, permanent. Tax breaks for everybody else expire. That's not the way to stand up for everyday Americans. That's extraordinary. Representative Stephen Horsford's amendments to make no tax on tips permanent and to close loopholes that are in this one big ugly bill. Dismissed out of hand. Amendments introduced by Ranking Member Huffman, Andrea Salinas, Dave Min, Emily Randall, and others, protecting public lands, dismissed out of hand. Amendments on energy introduced by members like Luz Rivas, dismissed out of hand. And I think I'll end this portion of my presentation. Mr. Speaker, I said this portion of my presentation. Still got a little more time. Donald Trump's deadline may be Independence Day. That ain't my deadline. You know why? Mr. Speaker? We don't work for Donald Trump. We work for the American people. That's why we're right here now on the floor of the House of Representatives, standing up for the American people, for everyday Americans, for hardworking American taxpayers, fighting hard to make sure that we can live in a country where every American can afford to live the good life. And as I mentioned earlier, Mr. Speaker, part of being able to afford to live the good life, part of those 5 things that I talked about, which shouldn't be hard to agree upon. Work hard, play by the rules, and then being able to be part of a country. Imagine a country where when you work hard and play by the rules, you can afford to obtain the American dream, to experience the good life, good paying job, good housing, good health care, a good education for your children, and then a good retirement. So we had a series of amendments, Mr. Speaker, introduced on the subject of education. Let me say something about the Department of Education, and every agency, every department can, of course, be improved in terms of its efficiency, but the Department of Education does important work, particularly as it relates to the most vulnerable children amongst us. And as part of this unprecedented assault on the American way of life, President Donald Trump issued this executive order, effectively trying to abolish the Department of Education. I know there are people all across the country as I travel throughout America concerned about this. Let me make something clear. The Department of Education was established by an act of the United States Congress. It cannot be abolished by anyone pretending to be a wannabe king. Not anyone. It's us the United States Congress. So we introduced, Mr. Speaker, a series of amendments related to this commitment, this recognition of the importance of education as part of accessing the American dream. Ranking Member Bobby Scott is also battling some issues. Life hits us all, but made sure to make his way here to the House of Representatives. It's part of his commitment to stand up for the education of our children and others. He had an amendment, Mr. Speaker, that strikes all of the extreme parts of the Committee on the Education and Workforce elements of this bill that make it harder for students to access high-quality education, jeopardizes child nutrition programs, and threatens financial student aid, all of which is being done recklessly, Mr. Speaker, by this one big, ugly bill. And as you know, Republicans chose to ignore this amendment, dismiss it out of hand. Representative Sarah Elfreth introduced an amendment to try to increase the amount that hard-working teachers and educators are able to deduct on qualified out-of-pocket classroom expenses. And that amendment was dismissed out of hand. Tax breaks for billionaires, Mr. Speaker, but Republicans have decided hardworking educators can't get an enhanced tax benefit for their out-of-pocket expenses. That's wrong, and as House Democrats, we will continue to stand behind the educators of the United States of America, the teachers in the United States of America, those to whom we entrust our most precious asset, our children. And House Republicans, Mr. Speaker, aren't standing up for educators, for the teachers of America. This is extraordinary. But we're going to continue to stand with our teachers and stand with our public schools all across the United States of America. That's what House Democrats are going to continue to do. Representative Val Hoyle had an amendment to increase Pell Grant funding, Pell Grant awards that are severely undermined in Donald Trump's one big, ugly bill. Mr. Speaker, it's extraordinary to me that this reckless Republican budget manages to go after blue-collar jobs, organized labor, hardworking American taxpayers who don't shower before going to work but shower after work, that Donald Trump's one big ugly bill goes after blue-collar, good-paying, prevailing wage jobs here in the United States of America, and then also goes after access to higher education. Representative Val Hoyle had an amendment, Mr. Speaker, increasing Pell Grant awards that are severely undermined in this bill. House Republicans chose to ignore this amendment, dismiss it out of hand. This is another one of those areas where our commitment to experiencing the American dream, whatever path you choose, whether that's through career and technical education, as has been the case by many members in their experience or their family experience. Don Norcross, one of our leaders in this regard, Debbie Dingell, others, Mark Pocan, part of the Labor Caucus, leaders in this regard. Mark Pocan, part of the trades movement. Don Norcross, part of the trades movement. Debbie Dingell, so close to the UAW and the trades. It's one of those areas where we also are informed by our personal experiences, why we find what is taking place, Mr. Speaker, in this one big, ugly bill so disgusting, these attacks by Republicans on the ability of all Americans to achieve the American dream, to be part of imagining an America where everyone who works hard and plays by the rules can live the good life. Higher education is not the entire solution, but it certainly is part of it. This was taught to me by my grandma Nana. She never had a formal 4-year education, but perhaps she was the wisest woman I've ever known. And she was determined to make sure that her 2 grandsons had the ability, as best she could, to obtain an education that might ultimately, for us, coming out of this working class neighborhood, Crown Heights in central Brooklyn, spending a lot of time in Bedford-Stuyvesant where she lived, on the corner of Putnam and Lewis, right down the block from the Cornerstone Baptist Church. She was determined to make sure that her 2 grandsons had the best opportunity, and in her view, and Grandma Nano's view, that meant access to education. And so, when we were young, she said to my younger brother and I, I'll never forget this conversation. We were in her home in Bed-Stuy. She said that the 2 of you are going to go to elementary school and then you'll graduate, go to middle school and graduate, high school and graduate, college and graduate. And then she dreamed about us going to graduate school, get a law degree, a PhD, a medical degree, an MBA, some form of advanced education. We were like, Grandma, we're going to be in school our entire lives. And she was so committed to that journey that every single time we graduated, this is a woman of modest means. She gave my younger brother and I, whoever was the graduate, $500 in cash. I still don't know where Nano got that money from. I know it came by her honestly. She saved for it. But it was designed to help incentivize her grandchildren to keep going through all of the obstacles. And Mr. Speaker, I made the mistake one day of telling that story, this $500 incentive, in front of my two sons. And they said, "Dad, you've been shortchanging us our entire lives." Access to education is a part of the journey for many of us. Shocking to me that this one aspect, not the only aspect, this one aspect that Thomas Jefferson, the author of the Declaration of Independence, once articulated, the father of the University of Virginia. Ben Franklin, the father of the University of Pennsylvania, others saw an important role for enlightened education as just one path that we as House Democrats are trying to protect, while also making sure that every single hardworking American can get the type of career and technical education if they choose that path to experience the American dream. Mr. Speaker, as I perhaps approach the end of this particular journey, let me just reiterate that as House Democrats, we maintain from the very beginning of this Congress, we acknowledged the election of President Donald Trump, offered to work with our colleagues on the other side of the aisle, whenever and wherever possible, in order to make life better for the American people, to stand up for the things that matter, not as Democrats, independents, or Republicans, but as Americans. But the route, Mr. Speaker, that has been taken by House Republicans is to go it alone and to try to jam this one big ugly bill filled with extreme right-wing policy priorities down the throats of the American people. That's why, in good conscience, we can't stand here, Mr. Speaker, and support this effort, this one big, ugly bill that hurts everyday Americans and rewards billionaires with massive tax breaks. America is too expensive. Housing costs are too high. Grocery costs are too high. Child care costs are too high. Energy costs are too high. Insurance costs are too high. America is too expensive. President Trump and House Republicans promised to lower costs on day one. Mr. Speaker, but costs aren't going down, they are going up. The policies unleashed by the Trump administration have been so chaotic, so all over the place, so much uncertainty has been created that the economy is being run off track, and nothing has been done to lower the high cost of living. In fact, not a single thing in Donald Trump's one big, ugly bill will meaningfully make life more affordable for everyday Americans, and that's just one of several reasons why House Democrats are a hell no on this legislation. We were a hell no last week, a hell no this week, a hell no yesterday, a hell no today, and will continue to be a hell no on this effort to hurt the American people. And I note for the record, Mom, hell is in the Bible. The American people are understandably frustrated by the high cost of living. Yes, they're frustrated by the unprecedented assault on the American way of life, on our democracy, on the rule of law, on due process, on health care, on Social Security, on nutritional assistance, but it's my sincere hope that we can find a path forward to actually address for the American people some of the underlying sources of their frustration. The fact that people, far too many people, you've heard the stories, Mr. Speaker, and that's just a fraction of the stories that have been shared with us, members of the United States House of Representatives, just a fraction of the stories that I've been able, on behalf of House Democrats, to enter into the record. They're frustrated by a lot of the things that have gone on in this country since January 20th. I'm frustrated by a lot of what has gone on, disgusted by a lot of what has gone on, Mr. Speaker, in this country since January 20th. We are better than this. But it's also important, one of the things that I hope, Mr. Speaker, we'll be able to address at some point is the source of the underlying frustration. It's a frustration in the comments, in the eloquent words of all of those presidential leaders that I mentioned earlier today, this frustration, this economic frustration. FDR talked about it. Truman talked about it. Kennedy talked about it. Johnson talked about it. Carter talked about it. Clinton talked about it. President Obama talked about it. President Biden talked about it. It's a consistent strand. And while progress has been made in the United States of America, we've come a long way on behalf of working class Americans. There is still a way to go to ensure that in this great country, hardworking American taxpayers don't simply work hard and play by the rules just to survive, barely paycheck to paycheck, but are able to actually thrive. That's the America that we should all commit to work hard towards bringing about. Good paying job, good housing, good health care, good education for your children, and a good retirement. A fair shot at achieving the American Leap. A good retirement, let me reiterate it for the record, that means, Mr. Speaker, that people in this town need to keep their hands off the Social Security and the Medicare of the American people. Keep your hands off Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all of the things. Hands off. And one of the many reasons why we strongly oppose Donald Trump's one big ugly bill is because it will result in the largest cut to Medicare, sets in motion the largest cut to Medicare, more than $500 billion by some estimations in American history. The American people, understandably frustrated, not for years, but for decades, that far too many have dealt with a situation where the system is not building an economy that works for hardworking American taxpayers, for everyday Americans, for working class Americans, for everyone who aspires to be part of the middle class. It's our sincere hope that we can get to a place one day, perhaps in a bipartisan way, not connected to this extreme and reckless, dangerous, partisan bill, this one big, ugly bill that will hurt everyday Americans in order to reward billionaires, that we actually can get to the work of lifting up everyday Americans, because the deck has been stacked against you for far too long. And that's not the America that the American people deserve. And part of the challenge, part of the problem, part of the issue as to why we find ourselves, everyday Americans, in this situation, it's because of the dominance of special interests in this town. And this one big, ugly bill represents a massive giveaway to special interests in this country. And we reject special interests because our job here in the United States of America, Mr. Speaker, is to protect the public interest at all times, today, tomorrow, always, and forever. extraordinary to me, Mr. Speaker, that you got folks in this town talking about draining the swamp. Guess what? You are the swamp. You are the swamp. You are the swamp. We've never seen anything like this. The type of corruption that has been unleashed on the American people and has poisoned, Mr. Speaker, this bill. See, you're consulting the parliamentarian, I think. I said people in this town. I'm thankful that my grandmother saw fit to have her grandson educated. We've never seen a level, Mr. Speaker, of this type of corruption unleashed on the American people that has made its way into this one big ugly bill. Extraordinary levels of corruption in this town, unleashed on the American people. Corruption on steroids would be an understatement. In terms of what the American people are now being subjected to. So one of the things we look forward to changing in this town, I want to make this commitment, House Democrats. We are committed to making sure that we end corruption once and for all in the United States of America, in corruption in Congress, in corruption at the Supreme Court, and in corruption with the administration. That's part of our agenda, an anti-corruption agenda. That's what the American people deserve. That's what we as House Democrats are committed to bringing about. The exact opposite, Mr. Speaker, of what we see in this bill. We're going to present to the American people an anti-corruption agenda, the likes of which have never been seen. Because it's too much. Fundamentally, it undermines the ability of government to deliver for everyday Americans. You see that politics, at the end of the day, is about the management of public money. That's why we need everyday Americans to participate in your democracy. Because politics, at the end of the day, is about the management of public money. It's about how taxpayer dollars are going to be managed. And what's extraordinary about this one big, ugly bill is that what we see, Mr. Speaker, is the management of public money, all of it being done in this highly partisan way. It's not designed to serve the best interest of the American people. It's being managed, Mr. Speaker, in this GOP tax scam, this disgusting abomination, this one big, ugly bill. The management of taxpayer money being misused and abused. to hurt everyday Americans in order to reward billionaires with massive tax breaks. That's a dereliction of duty, mismanagement of public money. It's an abuse of the privilege that all of us as members of the United States Congress have. And so one of our promises to the American people as we look toward the future, we will always be stewards of your money to make sure that we are allocating taxpayer dollars in a way designed to lift up the American people, not tear the American people down. That's the type of Congress that the American people deserve. The public interest over special interest. The public interest over special interest. The public interest over special interest. That's one of our promises to the American people. And we're going to work hard to earn your trust as we move forward and look toward the future. I mentioned earlier in my remarks that I wanted to talk a little bit about faith. I grew up in the Cornerstone Baptist Church. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. We walk by faith, not by sight. You just have faith the size of a mustard seed. You can move mountains. We come this far by faith. Can't leave this floor, Mr. Speaker, without talking a little bit about faith.
Talk about faith. Talk about faith.
And I use faith in the broadest sense of the word. Proud of what we are in this country: Jewish faith, Muslim faith, Hindu faith, Buddhist faith, Christian faith. All faiths. That's the interesting thing. This rush to jam this reckless bill down the throats of the American people, all of it somehow connected to our 249th birthday that we're going to celebrate tomorrow, July 4th. A journey launched by the Declaration of Independence. And ultimately, this principle embedded in the First Amendment around the importance of faith, but also at the same time the importance of separating church and state. It's all in the First Amendment as interpreted by the Supreme Court. Don't have time, I think, to really deeply go into it, but you've got... You've got the Establishment Clause and you've got the Free Exercise Clause. Framers of this country recognize the importance of faith, our journey of religion. I'm proud of my Christian faith. But I also recognize the importance of the plurality of all of us, men and women of faith, different religions. And also of the fact that here in America we embrace the religious and the secular. The religious and the secular. But on this question of faith, I alluded to it a little earlier. Seems to me that the Gospels, that the New Testament, there's some interesting parts of the Old Testament. I'm tempted to tell the story of King Nebuchadnezzar. Mr. Speaker, a lot of parallels to what's going on right now. But I'm gonna focus at this moment on the New Testament prescription, the Gospels. I think it was mentioned earlier by one of my colleagues. I think Don Beyer mentioned it earlier. Matthew, the 25th chapter, verses 35 and 40. I think it's important that at this time, in this moment, in this debate, before I leave the floor of the House of Representatives, that this Scripture be entered into the congressional record. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. A stranger, and you invited me in. E pluribus unum, out of many, one. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick. I had medical problems. Maybe I needed Medicare or Medicaid or the Affordable Care Act or the Children's Health Insurance Program or Planned Parenthood. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. We have a right as members of Congress to visit people who are detained. It's not just in law, it's right here in Matthew. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you? Or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in? Or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you? And of course, the reply from Jesus, truly, I tell you, whatever you did, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. That's what we should be doing here in the United States House of Representatives. Our job is to stand up for the poor, the sick, and the afflicted, the least, the lost, and the left behind, everyday Americans. That's what Matthew teaches us. And that's not what's happening in this one big ugly bill. That's not consistent with what my faith teaches me. I'm not down with this situation. I'm not down with this situation. Well, you got some folks in this town. They go to church. Mr. Speaker, I said some folks in this town, they go to church.
Take your time.
And I'm not questioning anybody's faith. I'm just making an observation. Got some folks in this town, they go to church and they pray on Sunday. P-R-A-Y.
Say the truth.
And then they come to Congress and pray P-R-E-Y on the American people. I'm not down with that kind of faith. That ain't my faith. That's not our faith. That's not the faith that comes out of the gospel. I can't find that kind of faith in Matthew 25 and 35. I can't find that kind of faith. But I do see something else.
Tell us what you see. Tell us what you see.
Can I talk about it for a moment?
Talk about it. Talk about it. Take your sweet time. Take your sweet time.
Take your time.
I do see something else, kind of what I'm seeing connected to this one big ugly bill. I don't know if this was an inspiration to this extraordinary assault on the American people, this corrupt piece of legislation. But when I look over my Bible, and this is going to come from John, it's not going to come from 2 Corinthians, although the Apostle Paul has a lot to say about that. And, Mr. Speaker, I said 2 Corinthians, not 2 Corinthians.
Come on now. Come on now.
I don't know who I'm talking about, but if you're going to sell the Bible, you should know the Bible. Trying to figure out, because it's not in Matthew.
That's right.
25, 35 to 40, but I did see something in John.
Go ahead now. Tell us what you said. Tell us what you said.
John 10 and 10. This frightens me in this moment that we're living in. It says the thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. It's incredible to me that we're here dealing with a piece of legislation literally that steals money from everyday Americans, from hardworking American taxpayers. Steals money from Medicaid, Medicare, the Affordable Care Act, supplemental nutritional assistance, steals money from Pell Grants, from the education of our children, from energy assistance programs. Thief comes only to steal
Come on, steal.
and kill.
Well done.
I don't say this lightly, Mr. Speaker, but we stand behind this point. That when you try to take health care away,
Yes.
what this bill does, taking health care away from everyday Americans, more than 17 million,